Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nerds of Legend. I am Ben. Next to me is Brendan, and below me is Joel, and we're going to be here to talk about Redshirts by John Scalzi.
By Will Wheaton.
It's voiced by Will Wheaton.
That was horrible.
Will Wheaton.
And just a couple things. Next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about the remaining 10 legions of Warhammer 40k, the Emperor's Angels themselves, and we're gonna have a whole lot of fun doing it. Other than that, on Thursdays, as always, we will be continuing our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And with that, since I picked the book this week, it will be me that is the one that gives the synopsis. So, do we need a timer anymore, or do we?
You definitely do.
Oh, fuck. All right.
Ready when you are.
Go!
The book Redshirts is a story that
All right, wrap it up. You're running out of time.
God damn it. Is basically it's a sort of Star Trek parody. It's basically there's this guy that gets, I can't remember the name of the Federation. It's like the Union of Federated Planets or something. It's a sort of future-versed
intentionally vague
sci-fi thing, intentionally vague, so you can't tell what science fiction paradigm it's in, but you can tell it's in Star Trek. This guy, he's sort of not necessarily Mary Sue, but he's got the perfect background for the story, where he eventually joins the flagship of the United Federation of Planets and
the
finds
Universal Union.
The Universal Union.
They call it the double U.
The double U. And he immediately figures out that there's something wrong with this ship, whereby every time there's an away mission, someone wearing an ensign of some sort, someone wearing a red shirt dies, but anyone who's a senior officer makes it out, and depending on dramatically, and whichever senior officer it is tells you how likely it is for it to be a very fatal mission. Whether it's the captain, the science officer, the number one, or the engineering officer. And he discovers what seems to be a vast conspiracy, because everyone on the crew of the ship is living their lives in fear. He eventually finds like a sort of like conspiracy theorist sort of guy that's basically like, don't become part of the narrative, who is basically living in the like tunnels within the ship. And they eventually find out that the ship has become the subject of... Yes, Brendan?
No, 1 minute.
Their ship has basically become the subject of a television episode from 2013. So the main characters of the book, who are not the main bridge officers, find a way to get themselves to go back in time using the plot of a previous episode of the show, and by kidnapping one of the bridge officers, and then they find some cast members of the show, and find a way to end the show, and that's kind of basically it.
End scene.
2 seconds to spare, didn't cut out anything.
Not bad.
I mean,
except for the majority of the plot.
Bullshit.
No. The fact that it was a show, like
once you get into there,
that was what made me. The first chapter sucked. Like I was like, I hate.
So I will say, if you're listening to this book on audiobook, the first chapter is
very difficult,
brutal to get through, because I'm not saying it's a problem. I think it's because of so if you listen to this on Kindle, it's narrated by Will Wheaton, and he has a very precise way of speaking, and John Scalzi likes to do a lot of he said, she said, they said,
but
dialogue.
I also think it was in the spirit of it's making fun of bad sci-fi, which would also mean bad writing.
So I think if you read it, like, it would make a lot of sense. It almost reads like a screenplay.
It does.
Yeah.
A shitty screenplay, one that somebody wrote together post Hangover. You know, like just like post of binge drinking, and is like not really writing it out.
If you listen to this book, it's hard, but I don't think if you read the book that it would be as bad.
Hard.
After chapter 1, it is not as bad.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of there's literally a full 5-minute period where it's just like he said, she said, they said, he said, she said, blah blah blah, back and forth, and I'm like
seashore.
Yeah,
and it's typically if you're talking to an author, if it's if you can tell it's a dialogue, you don't have to go back and you don't have to keep saying he said, she said, he said.
But in hindsight, it fit. In hindsight, the whole thing fit in the whole view of it being a bad sci-fi script. Everything made sense, right? Because in a bad script, you have to. In a bad script or a bad story, you do stuff like he said, and then, and that was all there. You do everything was,
and it's just corner, and then, it's just and it's just a really dry line. That's there's no do we not have any adjectives? What's going on?
Right. It was written by by what you would imagine a nerdy junior high student who would get out there, and I think it was
it's John Scalzi. He does stuff that's satire. This is a satire of a Star Trek.
But I have gone his writing style in Old Man's War and the Ghost War totally different. Mm-hmm. It's still you can still tell it's Scalzi. His thumbprint is all over that manuscript. But he had a specific viewpoint that he was trying to get across, and that was we are in Star Trek. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is even the logic leaps in this book are idiotic, in Star Trek. The guy sitting there being I went Jenkins, the guy who lives in the ductwork, but yet he's a giant Sasquatch and nobody ever sees him.
Yeah, he's super hairy or whatever.
Yeah, everybody's hey, he looks like a Sasquatch, and you definitely will never miss it. You'll never miss this guy. If he's standing there, you're going to see him. And yet he's able to hide in the ductwork, essentially. And he's I've gone through all of the records. Okay, so you got a ship covered in sensors, and you're able to hide from all of them, and at the same time go through every piece of data of every ship ever. And you're Starship Enterprise, the only thing that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it's that kind of high sci-fi ridiculous leap that made it to where he's well, of course we did this. Mm-hmm. And then he became the sage where he knows watch, there's going to be a dramatic pause, and that's a commercial break, and all of this. To me, it was very reminiscent of a Star Trek the original series episode.
Right. Yeah. It felt like it. I mean, it felt like any of TNG. It felt like a TNG or OG Star Trek. Oh no,
episode. Mine was the original series in my head. Yeah. The captain. What it was Kirk. It was Kirk. Yeah. They all took their names. Science Officer Keen was Spock. All of them took off. In my head, all of them did. Even the scenes where the engineer rushes into that, and he's we can't do it, Captain. We need more power. You're why are you not in engineering? But it was, and he actually references that. The guy's looking around, be why the fuck isn't that guy in engineering? It makes no sense.
I'm just gonna say, Scalzi's got a new book coming out on September 19th.
Whose pick is it this time?
It's not mine, but I'm just saying there's a new book from Scalzi coming out on September 19th.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be me. I was indisposed, so Ben chose in my stead.
Yeah.
That doesn't answer my question. Whose choice is it next?
Mine. We can make it Brendan's.
I don't remember. When's the last pick I got?
Who cares?
You picked at random, and then you picked at random. And then we ended up deciding not to cover the episode.
Oh, that's right.
That's why.
That's right, because she was stealing the identity of indigenous people.
Controversial.
She was not.
Anyway,
violation, Joel, right?
Right. And here I was giving Brendan shit in the beginning for his mildly racist due to me being old.
Yeah.
Look.
So it's like,
Yeah, that's what I get for picking cheap paperbacks. But
yeah. So this book, it hits all of like the
honestly best book I think we've done yet. My opinion. I'm going to say best book we've read yet.
I don't know about that. It was really good. Like just as a satire, like it's just like there's so many moments where it's like, like,
yeah, pure enjoyment read, like just quality shit, but like enjoyability of the story. I think I got through it in 2 sessions. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you don't count me bitching up a storm about
the first chapter,
but then chapter 2 through the rest, like
you got me read.
Yeah,
it was a fast read for sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was the
narrative was the best. I can make it to the cave entrance. There's sandworms everywhere.
Well, it's funny because it was like it got brought up how they were like, "Oh no!" I was like, "They're like, no, you don't bring it up to the senior officers because they'll just literally forget about it the next second. They don't even realize what's going on. They're like, what are you talking about? Because it's like they have like an amnesiac episode every time they get taken over by the narrative, and they're like, man, the quality of officers has really gone down as of late and stuff like that. It's like we need better people, and it's just
what
like
about the one where the guy dies and he's like, it's really tough to lose a man. After you've lost like 5,000 people in the last like year.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember like what the number was, but it was like
in the hundreds.
Yeah, it was in the hundreds. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so basically, so they confront the writer. So like, I think the genius of this book was they complete the main story of where the people confront like these unwitting participants in the narrative, like from the future, go back and confront the writer and producer.
Brilliant, like,
which is awesome. They find a way to find great. Like they find an extra who is like the body double of the main character, or the modern like actor
analog
of the main character, and they literally are like clones of each other, like down to the freckle, which and scar, like down to like freckles and scars. They're like exact analogs of each other. And then so he's like, all right, I believe you. After they kidnap Kowalski, and then
Chekhov. Just be honest, that was Chekhov from the original series.
and then they kidnap the actor for Chekhov and bring him back to their hotel, and are like, hey, and he's like, I don't believe you. And then Chekhov and Kowalski and think they banged. And
it's like, they're so arrogant. What are they going to do? They're in there.
Have you never met someone who understands you to the barest fiber of your being? It's like, how could you think that we would have fucked? Anyway, so the wild thing is they fix the story where it's like, all right, we'll end the show so that y'all don't start.
Hold on, in the craziest plot twist is the producer is checked out because his son is gotten a horrible motorcycle accident and is in a vegetative state. So their plan is to take them to switch the body doubles of can never remember the guy, Haskell or whatever the hell his name is.
Shit, whatever.
Yeah. He switched it.
The Protag?
Yeah. No. There's like the side guy.
Is it Dahl? Is it Andrew Dahl? Oh.
No, but they switch his body with
Jenkins.
Yes, not Jenkins.
Right? No, Jenkins is the crazy guy. Hester, there you go. Jasper, I can remember his first name, which he made a big scene out of it.
Intentionally forgettable names.
Yes, Hester, and Hester was the producer's son, and it was and so their plan was to have Hester go back as to stay as the producer's son and then go back, take the producer's son back and call him Pastor.
Because the thing is, like,
everything be fixed.
The people from the future have to, like, stick to the rules of the universe as prescribed by the show.
The conventions of the plot, basically.
So
which
basically,
means
like,
they cannot be in the past for more than 5 days or their atoms disappear.
Right.
And they're like,
they basically dissolve into goo.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Sending the cast version back to the show period.
They revert to his original form in the show.
In the show. And so it heals the comatose version of him, and the other version of him is okay in the past, and so both versions of him are.
Everybody just pops up, all good to go.
So the final third of the book is a version of first person, second person, and third person. So first person is from the point of view of the author, of him coming to the terms with, like, every time I make a character die, someone dies in real life in the future. And it's him, like, basically on a Reddit forum, basically being like, what do I do? And then, like, it basically turns into him being like, someone being like, it's not that you're a bad writer, it's you're a lazy writer. And they basically tell him, like, write better. Like, you don't, like, you're giving all these characters pointless deaths. Stop giving them pointless deaths.
Like when they were explaining to you how Finn died.
Yeah.
By that guy who was upset with Captain he was upset with Captain Abernathy.
Yep. Abernathy,
and,
yes.
So he kept a bomb in his head for
like 10 years.
Until he accidentally comes up to him so he could blow his head up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. That whole thing was just...
You just made somebody die for no reason.
Knee-jerk deaths, you know? And that was... Go ahead.
There's an entire layer underneath this. I mean, it's straight up satire, but there's an entire layer that shields the plot of the narrative because of the fact that you are aware as the reader, almost like you're aware. If you're watching an episode of TOS, like the original series, and you see Kirk and Spock in the elevator, and you see the lights going from the levels. If you spend a couple hours, even a couple of minutes reading about the budget they had, you know that there were people behind the set with lights and a piece of paper going like this. Mm-hmm. And as you read this, there's the intentional implausibility and the intentional thinness of the script that is just hand waving from a piss poor writer. And so
that's why, like, there's always a disaster on deck.
Yeah.
Because they only had sets for those three.
Yeah. And so, exactly. And I think the strength of this book is Scalzi knows exactly how long to play with each portion of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tom, a really good friend of mine wrote a one-act play called The Understudy, about how the characters in a stage play slowly come to the realization that they are characters in a play, and when the play ends, they will cease to exist. And they will revert back to being the actors, and that instance of them in the play will no longer be alive. And so one of them wants to end the play and doesn't care. One of them is trying to go chaotic and go off script before the play ends, and the other one, like, is coming to terms with existence. Scalzi knows exactly how long to go with the Stranger Than Fiction meets Galaxy Quest. Mm-hmm. Like, knows exactly how long to play with. Oh, hey, there's a writer and they're screwing everything up. The third part, they go first person. There's multiple epilogues, but none of them felt excessive.
Right.
The opening.
It did. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say the opening chapter 1. I read instead of listening to audiobook, and so as someone
probably your best call. That was a horrible chapter.
As someone who's read screenplays, it was there's really
like
no
a screenplay.
There's no prose. There's just dialogue or stage notes at best, and so there was a comedic timing and intentional comedic delivery. And I didn't feel like any portion of Redshirts was too much, and I also felt like Scalzi knew when to jump from different critiques to concepts to homage.
Absolutely, he did. Yeah. It was the way that you got to, like, again, I felt like I took a journey with them. Like you feel like you're with
Fully.
Dahl as he's figuring it out. As you know, in the beginning, he's like, Jenkins is out of his mind. He thinks we're on a show, like to the point where he's like, best part of the book was they're with Kowalski and the guy, or Abernathy, and the guy brings somebody with him and he dies. And he's like, this was his last away mission. He was 2 days from retirement.
Yeah.
And they're like,
yes.
oh my God. And then they're like,
I think the best moment though, the best moment though was when Dahl wakes up. Sorry if this is a spoiler.
No, this whole thing we're all filled with spoilers. So yeah.
Dahl wakes up in the final like scene of like the main story, and Jenkins is there, and he's like, and then Jenkins is like, I finally decided it was time to stop being in hiding, basically, because like Jenkins saved Dahl's life.
Yeah,
because he was like he basically got punctured through the spleen in deck 6 or whatever, and Jenkins really came out and saved him.
Fuck me.
You're like, oh god damn it!
Like, he made it all the way through, and he just got caught with some.
He fixed everything, and then
and the writer's like, "Fuck you! I'll write shitty if I want to."
It sort of reminded me of when Will Ferrell's character thought he was going to croak in Stranger Than Fiction, and then had successfully convinced the author otherwise.
Dude, there was like I need to like write down all those ones that were listed in the first person view, because I feel like those are all books and or movies that I need to read.
yeah. So I actually a very strong very strong feeling of Babylon 5. It was very evocative of Babylon 5 when I read the portion where he's lamenting on Reddit, because for those who know, mid to late 90s, as that show was taking off, J. Michael Straczynski actually resorted to reading the online forums to make decisions about the plot and character decisions, because it was a science fiction show.
He's trying to like avoid like fan criticism, or
no. Well, just the opposite. So because it's a science fiction show, those who were following the show were in technological fields, were educated, passionate. I mean, we watched Stargate Atlantis at 2 a.m. during engineering school, you know, so those who are technologically proficient tend to follow.
Dude, I've seen all the Stargate. I'm not proficient at shit.
Correlation does not imply causation, but let's just say a lot of engineers watch Star Trek.
Poke a hole in that theory of yours, buddy.
Here's a throwback to Ringworld. A bunch of physics students from MIT chanted the Ringworld is unstable at his first convention about the story, and he actually
he fixed the science.
So J. Michael Straczynski's show Babylon 5 was picking up so much. People were giving him hints, so like, hey, like this would behave this way, or and then they throw up their theories, and he'd go, wait a second, I see the theories, I don't know how the story's over yet. Maybe these theories will help me, you know. So he was given a lot of material to work with, and so that really related to me, the author in this case, in the first epilogue.
Yeah. It was weird because I finished I was like, oh, the story's over, and then it was like, oh, the author's point of view, and I was like, wait a second, there's still like an hour and a half left.
Yeah.
And then it went through the point of view of like the guy that got left, like the Haster that got left behind, so to speak, and him coming to terms with that, and then it was the wife, and I think it was the best send off because it was like the wife.
That was like the happiest ending.
Oh my gosh. I was like, that was, I mean, like you could see it coming, but it was also like,
were filled with
I was like, yes,
yeah.
Like there's this,
but it wasn't the two. It wasn't the two. It was the writer.
Yeah, because it was like the first, second, and third point of view, and it was like awesome because it was like, it hit this book. I thought it was just going to be a Star Trek parody, and it became so much more than it ended up being, and I enjoyed it.
I don't know if you were that close to Star Trek as a child.
Oh, okay.
But, like,
so TNG was my shit. That was like all I watched, like I would like come home from school and I would just like watch TNG marathons like constantly. So like, don't tell me I don't feel the Star Trek love.
No,
Ooh, it's a turn off.
I'm not saying you didn't, but like as a child, like, because I'm older than both of you, like I remember when Sunday nights was like back to back original series Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Like my whole family would sit there and we would have to watch all of this. So like all of those stories are like, that was my first adventure stories. That was my first type through it. And like, as soon as they start telling these stories, like I'm envisioning.
Like, I know this one.
Right. Like I'm envisioning them all in like the unnecessarily tight, shirts and the capris and the knee-high black boots, doing ridiculous sign. Yeah. The double-handed, back of the head.
The badly choreographed.
Yeah. Horrible fight scenes. The blast, the phasers that never work, often cause problems. Like all of it was
this
just
like
so
state of the art Federation aircraft.
Yeah,
always has like problems show up on the bridge where shit explodes.
The part where afterwards he's like, I don't know why we have so many problems with the inertial dampers whenever we have a fight.
You'd think they'd fix that by now.
Looks directly in the camera.
Yeah. It was funny, like when they have those moments of lucidity, they're like, what the hell is going on? None of this makes any sense. Because if you ever watch, like Star Trek was only good episodically. Like you cannot binge it. If you binge it, the Starship Enterprise is the worst assembled vehicle in all time.
I guess, yeah.
I binged Star Trek The Next Generation. And in the season 1, I think they jettisoned the warp core like 4 times. They're like,
I guess TNG
entertainment every 5 minutes.
TNG, they did fix a lot. Like they did stop doing the same plot threads of the main show.
I mean, after a while.
TNG is not without its sins.
No, I didn't say it was not. I was they did not do the same like thing that the OG show did.
Yeah. But the OG show didn't take itself that seriously. Like it had a budget of $35 and that was it. Like it didn't know it was going to become a cultural phenomenon. And like they're getting the idea with TNG and like that's what this
after season 1 of TNG, they realized, holy shit, we might have lightning in a bottle, and then the show grew a beard.
Yeah.
I would.
That's how you figure success is somebody grew a beard on the show.
Well, that's what Riker grew a beard, and then TNG got good.
It's actually the correlation is very close.
Tell me I'm wrong. Go and rewatch it and tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not.
I can't argue with the power of the beard. Like,
so TOS was only 3 seasons. The original series was only 3 seasons,
which is wild to me.
Mm-hmm. Considering that, remember, it was
one of the most definitive sci-fis of our generation.
Right. Yeah, it was canceled before the 70s, and then I believe motion picture was 79. So. Mm-hmm. What ends up happening is TOS disappears and then becomes a franchise with all of the TOS era movies based on the strength of its syndication. So when it made it to syndication, episodic format is what saved the entire IP, was the strength of individual stories. The cast of TOS and the scripts, because we all see the vinyl and the cardboard and no budget. So it's the way. Which is why
it's great.
It's the way the characters get along with each other. It's the writing of Spock and Bones and Kirk and Uhura and Scotty, and it's the power of individual narratives that the reason why we're even talking about this right now.
I didn't really watch the original Star Trek.
God, it's so great and horrible at the same time.
I'm going to tell you, I didn't, but the movies. Like the
first one,
my parents were OG Trekkies, but they had me watch the shit out of TNG. But the movies, like I can't tell you how many times I watched Star Trek 4.
Okay. Wales?
That's the best one. And
exactly.
Search for Spock.
I like
Spock is good.
Search for Spock is great. Wrath of Khan is awesome. I lost anytime Star Trek 4 was on, I was glued to the television.
Yeah, still to this day. Like I will watch the shit out of that. I still remember that
aluminum.
I still remember that stupid punk song.
Like I think back on it, I'm like, why did I watch the entire plot of that movie is so bad. Like, why did I watch that so many times?
Like, they didn't need to do any of that shit. Like,
yeah.
They didn't need to do any of that work.
But and I think that's what this book really hits, is it's just like, it hits those those nostalgic parts of your brain. Mm-hmm. I've seen the Kirk's fight with the Gorn with the freaking two-handed.
Where he magically created gunpowder by just throwing shit in a tube.
I didn't really watch a whole lot of Kirk stuff.
Oh my God, we need to do mom parties on here of the original series.
Hell yeah.
Please, God, please.
I don't know how that works, but we'll figure it out.
I will do that. We'll do that every Saturday. Fuck that. This is great.
Episodic reviews. We won't show the footage of this reviews of the episodes. There we go.
Yeah, and I just I get it that I missed out on some things, but also at that age, I was like, whatever my parents had me watch, and they were like, watch TNG, because I'd watch Star Trek: The Next Galaxy with or The Next Generation with my parents, and then they'd rewatch the movies. They didn't rewatch the old shows; they'd rewatch the movies. So
this is why trivia teams are 4 to 6. Everyone's got holes.
Yeah,
and you patch them up, and I mean that's what we're doing with the book reviews. There are a lot of these books I never would have read. Yeah, and so there's a cultural exchange here. Yeah, and I was tentatively excited for this because of how important Star Trek is to me.
Yeah,
I mean, heck, we're in our basements on a sci-fi podcast, so I mean,
shit, we all are in our basements. I forgot.
Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe. Babylon 5, Farscape, I mean, Deep Space Nine, bam, bam, bam. So I mean, this was like, I hope this is good, and it was honestly, yeah. Go ahead.
I feel that Deep Space Nine is where Star Trek started taking itself a little bit more seriously than it should, and you lost some of the campiness. That's what drew me to watch it.
There's no camp in Deep Space Nine. The entire thing is a metaphor for former Yugoslavia and everything.
Yeah, the fact that when Tasha Yar got killed by tar, literally just a blob of tar, just like, I'm going to kill you.
That was in season 1 of TNG.
Yeah, and you're like that, okay, that's
period 87 to 94. Yeah,
that was idiotic. But.
Yeah, I did mention earlier, TNG is not without its sins, and
but that was still the right level of tongue-in-cheek campiness, but a little bit more serious. They faced some serious issues.
People could, main characters could die,
right? But you still had,
even though we all wanted Wesley Crusher to die. Sorry, Will Wheaton.
But you're still the first few seasons of The Next Generation, you'd watch and you'd be like, does this really happen? Do we really have a god pretending to be a French soldier?
Q.
It made no sense, but it was enjoyable no sense. You knew it was a dumpster fire and you were going to watch it every fucking week at 8:00, or whatever time it came on.
Deja Q is such a good episode.
Yeah. So fucking any episode with Q was great.
Honestly, they were a coin flip. Let's be real.
No, I liked all of them. All of the Q episodes.
I hated the Robin Hood one, but okay.
But anyway, back to this book. This book for me gave me all the feels. In my head, I was watching it in original series episode. The same shit that didn't make any sense. There's the bad thing. Let's run towards it. The way people were dying. One that sticks in my head really strongly is an episode where they go to this planet. The planet is designed to let you live out your fantasies, and half of them died, and they had no idea what's happening. But they didn't really die; they were just repaired. And
the Menagerie,
yes,
parts 1 and 2.
Yes, and that was like, you're like, what the fuck is happening? Yeah, you are.
I kind of glue it together.
Your dork is very strong.
City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah. All of those beautiful. I loved them.
Every time you think you can out-nerd Brendan, I think
No, I don't even think I can. I don't try to out-nerd Brendan. There are some things that cannot be done.
Space Seed with Khan. That was a good episode.
Yes. I just remember, like, and then I read the books and how, like, the gateway.
Yeah.
That's the City on the Edge of Forever, right? The one with the gate?
Yes. Yeah.
And that one was built by Q's people, according to a book called Q Squared.
Retcons.
Yeah. Anyway, we have completely trounced all over this book. It took us well into our nerd basics. I fucking loved it. Ben gets 10 stars for overtapped. Like I enjoyed this one more than any other story. And one story that I picked,
actually, I think Old Man's War, you had the same level of like hell yeah
not
too.
like this, but Old Man's War was another one. Like John Scalzi can write a fucking story, man.
Yeah.
Like he's and he's great at making you be like, what the fuck is happening next?
Do you want to see if you can get him on here again, or?
Oh, I can try.
Not to take away.
I think he's a little bit bigger than some other authors we've had on, but like
this is true.
Worth a shot.
Not to take away from Mr. Scalzi, but finishing this book, all it made me want to do was watch Star Trek.
Honestly, I think that's his point. I think that's his point.
The strength of it is how evocative it is of our love of sci-fi and why we follow it.
I mean,
like, oh, hey, tire tracks behind the wagon wheel, 7 guns at a 6-shooter, but we don't care. You look.
So
Tarantino calls it the umbilical between like the viewer and like pretending willfully knowing that the story isn't real, but following it anyway. And I think that's strong with sci-fi, especially with Star Trek.
So September 19th, Scalzi's got a new book coming out called Starter Villain. But since Brendan's back, and otherwise it would have been Missy's turn, and Missy's not here. Brendan, do you have a book suggestion?
Yeah, I had 3 I was tossing around. I was picking some bangers. I was picking some Hugo and Nebula winners for a while there.
I swear if you throw at me another fucking like historical fiction bullshit again, I'm gonna get mad at you.
Oh, that book was awesome.
I would prefer to not read anything real in this podcast.
All right, no more nonfiction. We're gonna watch the movie, but no more nonfiction.
I honestly do want to get to a watch party. I think that would be a lot of fun. Not for the podcast to be fucking useless, but like for.
Are we feeling
sci-fi?
Let's go sci-fi.
Sci-fi? Okay.
Kaiju War. Oh, okay.
All right. Would we want to? We didn't do the Forever War yet, did we?
No,
we have not. I've talked about it.
Yeah, we've mentioned it many times. It was one of the graphic novel version was very formative to me as a kid. Let's go Forever War. Let's just do it.
Ooh. Is that Bradbury?
No. It was a I forget his name. He was a Vietnam vet.
I'm looking it up. 1974. Oh, Joe Haldeman. I do know that there's certain things that are.
It won the Nebula and the Hugo.
Yeah.
There we are.
I do know there's some controversial parts about this one, but also it was about his experiences in Vietnam. So we're going to work with it.
It is not available on Scribed.
That's fine.
So Audible it is.
Yeah, it's a good. I've read this one I think 2 or 3 times, so it's a good. It's going on the board.
For those at home, we'll be reading the novel, not the graphic novel.
Thank you, Brennan. I was about to suggest that. It's about a Vietnam veteran's experiences with coming back from the Vietnam War. It's really interesting from that point.
Oh well, they have like relativity in it, like time distortions and shit. That's awesome.
It's allegorical, so it is science fiction, but it's told from the perspective of him and his experiences as a vet.
It's how what he experienced coming back from Vietnam, and like
but it plays with relativity and the passage of time as a strong mechanic.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's under 250 pages. I think
it's a short one.
236. So.
It's a fun novel. I've read it like I said 2 or 3 times. I don't think there's a follow-up novel on it, so you don't have to worry about getting into that sort of situation, Joel.
I'll find one. I've already seen Forever War 3. So
yeah,
like it's got a rabbit hole,
which was weird because he encounters he encounters humanity when it reaches a singularity. Sorry, spoilers. So, but it's a fun book.
Peace.
Yep. So that's all we've got this time. I know we didn't. I mean, it was only an 8-hour book, so we didn't have a whole lot to talk about, and I guess it was more like gushing about our Star Trek fandom. But thanks everybody for watching, and again, we'll catch you again on Thursday. We'll be doing some Dungeons and Dragons, and then next Tuesday we'll be continuing our exploration on the Angels of the Emperor, aka the last 10 Legiones Astartes of Warhammer 40k. So bye everybody, we'll see you again on Thursday.